This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
You know, the reason I call my book Dignity Day is because the woman who I was seeing and providing support through her end-of-life journey already had the medications. And they were in a box on her shelf with the words Dignity Day written across them. She knew when she was ready, when the time was right, when she was at that moment when she could say, I'm doing this now, that they would be waiting for her.
This is the Heart of Hospice podcast with Helen Bauer. My friend Gabby Jimenez, end-of-life doula, hospice nurse, and owner of the Hospice Heart, is back in the studio today. Whether you're a family caregiver or an end-of-life professional, the Heart of Hospice is here to enhance your hospice experience by connecting you with information you can use about end-of-life care.
This episode of The Heart of Hospice is sponsored by Odonata Care. When caring for a loved one on hospice, support becomes essential. Introducing the Care Plan, a path to comfort for the hospice patient, a supportive guide by experienced hospice nurses Nancy Hireman and Brenda Kazire. Nancy and Brenda invite you to experience all that the Care Plan has to offer. Be sure to check out their free library of care videos on thecareplan.net or on YouTube. Purchase your copy of the Care Plan today at thecareplan.net.
My dear friend, who I think this is her third or fourth time on the show, recording with me, something like that. So we're going to rename the podcast The Hospice Heart of Hospice because she is the owner of the Hospice Heart. She is a hospice nurse and end-of-life doula, and she's a death and dying educator. She's a conscious educator. She shares her experience through her blogs, her books, and her classes. Through her experience with death and grief, she's built her Hospice Heart community, which has over 140,000 people. And yet, Gabby still finds time to interact with all the questions and the comments. She's amazing. This community reminds her how many people are dying, how many people are caring for someone who is dying, and how many people are grieving. And a lot of those folks are doing it without the tools and the resources that they need. So her goal is to help improve the way human beings are cared for when they die and when they grieve. Gabby wants to take away the fear and uncertainty that these people are experiencing and help those that are at the bedside to feel supported and confident with the care that they're providing. All of that can be found on her website, thehospiceheart.net, and you are going to hear some really good conversation with Gabby today, because today we're doing something specific in our conversation. We are focusing on how nurses support patients who are utilizing medical aid in dying. Okay, so very specific. Gabby has a new book called Dignity Day about people who are using MAID. She's sharing how she chose the title for the book. It's kind of special, so listen for that story. And she's also reading an excerpt from her book as well as a poem that she wrote. Very special, very moving, and I think it's going to touch you in your heart today very closely. She's talking about the 3 questions she asks at the end of the day that helps her process her emotions. So all of those of you who are listening who are caregiving professionals or unpaid caregivers, because unpaid caregivers, we see you. We see you, 55 million of you unpaid caregivers. She has figured out ways to take care of herself by asking herself 3 questions at the end of the day. And she's also going to be talking about the rituals that she practices for self-care. So get comfy, get a cup of tea, kick your shoes off, and we're going to hear a nice conversation, wonderful conversation with my friend, Gabby Jimenez of the Hospice Heart. Gabby, welcome back to the show. It's so great to have you. Oh my gosh. I have to tell listeners before we even get into the interview, we have already been on the call for 40 minutes, just catching up and yakking and sharing our lives with each other. And it's so great to have you back on the show.
I love being here with you. You know, we've been doing this for a couple years now, and I feel just as excited today as I did the first time I interviewed with you. I am only this time I get to say that we really are friends. We've built a friendship. And so to be here today is wonderful. And I love to support you. I love that you support me. But I also like the opportunity for us to just collaborate and communicate. And like you just said, we just spent 42 minutes just talking.
We did.
Way before we even started, which is awesome. I love that.
For this episode, the title of the podcast is, what did we decide? The Hospice Heart of the Heart of Hospice. Because you are the Hospice Heart and I am the Heart of Hospice. So it's perfect collaboration and I love it. It's with a friend. So we're jumping in. We've had a lot of laughter and there will be more of that. But we do have a pretty intense topic today, one that can be a little bit controversial. So we're going to say up front, we are neither endorsing nor condemning. We're not giving a judgment or an opinion. This is strictly informational. We are talking about medical aid in dying. So our opinions as hospice practitioners don't count in this situation. We are here to support patients' choices and patients' deaths and their families and their caregivers. And that is exactly what we're going to be talking about today, is how nurses support patients who are utilizing medical aid in dying at the end of life. So as part of your work as a hospice nurse, you work in the state of California. There is a medical aid in dying law that's available. You support patients and families through your hospice agency when they're utilizing MAID. So talk to my listeners. Tell me about what the nurse's role is when they're working with a patient who's utilizing MAID.
Absolutely. So first of all, in each state, it's called something different. I mean, some use medical aid in dying, some use death with dignity. In California, and there might be one or two other states, we call it the End of Life Option Act, which are the initials EOLOA. So we refer to it as ALOA. And it is, in my mind, it's medical aid in dying, which should be sort of the umbrella topic. Personally, I think that the reference to what it is, it's a choice. Each company has a different protocol relative to the nurse's role. Some companies don't support this at all, and so they do not have patients that elect to do this. The nurses are not allowed to be present at ingestion. At my company, which I am incredibly grateful for, as a nurse, I can sit there at the bedside and hold their hands and look into their eyes and let them know that they are safe as they ingest their medications. I can't imagine doing it any other way. I don't think I would feel good hiding in the kitchen or the other room or outside the door. I want to be there at that moment when they take the medications, because there are two things that happen when you take the medications that can be very scary, besides the entire idea of it all. Your throat closes a little bit, which is scary. And there's a burning sensation that happens, which is scary. It doesn't always happen, but it happens enough to know that I want to be there when it does, because I want that person to feel safe. My role as a nurse is to look them in the eyes and say, I've got you. I'm right here. Just breathe. Breathe right through it. And I'll breathe them through it and it will pass. That is my role as a nurse. My role as a nurse is to educate the family and those who are present, to let them know what to expect, to let them know that they're not alone, to let them know how much it matters to me that they are supporting someone they love, and to remove fear, and to just be present enough so that person who's made one of the biggest choices in their entire life, right? To let them know that they are doing this with respect and that I applaud the right for a human being to have autonomy at the end of their life.
So, Gabby, I want to touch back because there's a lot to discuss in this, a lot of details, but I want to touch back on something you said. You talked about the patient ingesting the medication, which means to actually take the medications, to swallow them. So the nurse is not actually administering the medications. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. Each situation is different, but in our situation, the doctor mixes the medications. I'm present. I don't touch them. And then the doctor hands it to the patient, and the patient has to be of sound mind, able to say, yes, I want to do this, and be able to take the medications in their hand, whether it be in the bottle that it came in or a glass which it's mixed in. It can be their choice. And they need to be able to take it themselves. We cannot touch it or hold it or assist in any way. We can talk to them, we can educate them, we can support them, we can be right there. But this is something they have to be able to do. Even if they should stop, we can't push the glass a little closer or help them. This is something they need to do on their own. So my role is not to give them the medications, but to be there and be present for them when they take them.
Okay, so let's think about this. What if you have patients that are unable to swallow?
There are other routes, one of which is rectal. That is a whole nother route. We can use a catheter to administer the medications rectally. We can fill a syringe, and by we, I mean the doctor, will fill the syringe with medications, place it in there, and the patient has to be able to take the syringe and push it. We cannot assist it. So the doctor can prepare it and have it in place, but the patient has to be able to administer it themselves.
And the caregiver can't administer it either. The family cannot administer it.
You actually do not have to have a doctor or nurse present. The family can do it on their own. They can choose however they want to do it. They can have whomever they need to there. We can't witness that. We would need to step away. So we would not be present for that if the family was going to participate. But no, the patient has to be able to administer it in our presence. When we are present, the patient has to be able to administer it themselves, not with assistance from anyone else.
Is there a psychological screening or a waiting period? What is the law in California?
Okay, in California, and this has changed a little bit, it used to be that you would have your first meeting with the doctor, right? The initial meeting, the conversation where the protocols are expressed and explained. The person is, for lack of a better word, is maybe interviewed, right? Is this person cognitive and aware of what they want to do? Are they of sound mind? Are they capable of taking the medications? Make sure all of that is done. That is the first letter that is initiated by the doctor. It used to be, up until about almost 2 years ago now, it used to be that there was a 2-week waiting period for the second letter, which is when the prescribing doctor will come in and follow up. It has now been moved to 48 hours, which is significant in the life of somebody who's making this decision because a lot can happen in 2 weeks. So now that it's 48 hours, the second doctor, which is the prescribing doctor, will have another interview with this person. And that will be the time when the prescription for the medications are written. That prescription is written and it is sent to a compounding pharmacy, which is a special pharmacy who compounds the 5 medications, which is what we use at this time, and creates a powder. And that is not covered under insurance. It is not covered by a hospice Medicare benefit. It is something that is out of pocket. In California, it's about $700 right now, which has changed over the years. Back when it first started for California, it was almost $5,000. So It's definitely changed quite a bit. And it is something that is really important that families understand that it is out of pocket. And so that second visit with the doctor is the one that initiates the prescription. The prescription is written. The family will pick up the medication. It comes in a bottle that is a powdered form of the medications. And it's a 2-part things. So you first take antiemetics for nausea, right? So you take that first, and about 45 minutes to an hour later, you will then use the medications. The medications used to be mixed with 4 ounces of water. It now has been reduced to 2 to 3 if the person cannot swallow 4 ounces, but they would need to swallow at least 2.
So is the medication formula, for lack of a better word, the compounding, the mix that's ordered, is that standard, or is that something that's according to the physician that's ordering it?
It's standard. It is the same medications, and I'm going to venture to say that all across the board, whichever state, the medications are the same, but that I am not 100% sure of. The medications that we use here in California are diazepam, digoxin, morphine, amitriptyline, and phenobarbital.
It's interesting. So there's a lot of legalities that go into this whole thing. So why is that waiting period so significant? You said that was really a big advantage to patients. What happens between 48 hours and 2 weeks that a patient, would be unable to use MAID?
That's a really good question. Time takes on a whole new meaning when you have left, right? So when you are told that you have less time, that time is so significant. Now, if you have a decline that is happening rapidly and you can feel things changing, whether your pain is increasing or perhaps even your swallowing ability is lessening, or maybe you're having extreme nausea, or whatever symptom you're having, that is only going to exacerbate, and you know that. Knowing that you have this option is something that kind of sits on the back burner for a little bit, right? It's there, when you're ready, you can do it. And then you decide, okay, it's time. And then you have to wait 2 weeks. What if all of that you were experiencing is heightened, and all of a sudden the pain just gets worse, or the difficulty swallowing, or the vomiting, or whatever you're going through, the anxiety is high? 2 weeks is a lifetime. The fact that they changed it to 48 hours is a big compliment to the person making this decision. It's a gift in many ways, because what it says is you don't have to wait. It was hard enough getting to the point where you made this brave decision. We're going to assist you here and allow you to move forward in a time that's convenient for you. Now, some people have planned ahead. I know that this diagnosis is going to lead to a difficult time for me. I am going to suffer. I'm going to plan ahead. Some people have the meds already in their house, and they'll say, okay, we're going to do it tomorrow. So they've already gone through that process, which I think is brilliant, because then they can do it when they're ready. Now, we're not going to say you have it, so you should do it now. We're also not going to get upset if they decide on the day they call us in to change their mind. This isn't about us. What we want you to know is that if you've made this brave decision, we are going to walk alongside you on this journey, be with you in whatever way we possibly can, in a time frame that works best for you to relieve your suffering.
So you have patients that go through all the process, have the medications actually with them in the home, and they decide they don't want to do it.
Some, not many, decide they don't want to do it. Some wait too long and can't do it.
When you say can't, it means they physically can't give it to themselves. So at that point, it can't be utilized.
They are no longer appropriate. They don't follow the proper protocols.
Right.
They are cognitively unable to. They maybe cannot swallow. They maybe cannot hold it. They cannot take the medications down in the way that they need to in order for this to be effective. So once that happens, we have to say, I'm sorry, you are no longer appropriate. And that's a difficult decision to make. But when a human being gets to that point, when the patient itself gets to the point where they can't do it, I think they already know. I think they know it's gone too far. And at that point, they're usually declining so quickly that they transition rather fast anyway. So this again is why timing is such an important thing, is because to have time taken from you and not be able to navigate things in a quicker fashion makes you sit and wait, and that adds to your struggle. So to be able to be prepared ahead of time, have it on your shelf, that's a great thing. Or to have the 48 hours where you can say, okay, it's Tuesday, you guys, we're going to do this on Saturday. you know that that's possible. So to be not appropriate, that is the most common reason why someone wouldn't take it. I think I've only had maybe 2 or 3 people that have decided, I'm not going to do it. I think I'm just going to let this happen naturally. Or they've just decided, I don't want to do that. I'm not ready yet. Some just end up dying naturally without as much struggle as they thought they were going to have.
Do you think there's a sense of security for someone who knows that their death is coming very quickly, but they have the meds in there and they're like, this is kind of my secret weapon. I can decide later on if I want to use it, that they get a little bit comfortable emotionally and mentally and spiritually around the whole thing? I've heard of that. Patients that get the medications into the home and they die comfortably without ever using them.
Absolutely. It's a backup plan. The reason I call my book Dignity Day is because the woman who I was seeing and providing support through her end of life journey already had the medications. And they were in a box on her shelf with the words Dignity Day written across them.
Oh, wow.
She knew when she was ready, when the time was right, when she was at that moment when she could say, I'm doing this now, that they would be waiting for her. There were often times during our conversations where she would say, okay, I think I want to do it on Wednesday. Nope, I'm not ready to do it on Wednesday. And we would kind of say like, okay, how about next week? Nope, I don't think I'm ready. And then there was the day where she said, I have to do it now. I need to do it now. And we literally went over there that day and supported her. So it's a backup plan. It's hope. It's freedom. It's the reminder that you still have a choice, even when everything else has been taken from you. It's a box that holds relief and dignity, and you can choose to do it or not. And that too gets to be your choice. And no one is going to interfere with that.
How empowering is that?
Right?
In a situation where most things are out of control. So I would think that for patients with neurodegenerative disorders, that waiting period and the ability to self-administer is very sketchy and very hard to narrow down that sweet spot. Patients with things like end-stage ALS, end-stage Parkinson's, end-stage MS, any neuro disease, that's a lot harder to predict that time period where they're still cognitively able to understand and express the wish that this is what I want to do and I understand why and what it is, and being physically able to actually self-administer.
Well, that's actually quite a topic right now, which would be good for another conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Because people with disabilities, or with ALS is a good example, they're still cognitively able to make a decision this powerful and important, but physically unable to act on it. And there's a lot of question out there, and I don't think I'm qualified to really give the details on that, but enough to say that there is an organization of people who are collaboratively coming together to find a way to allow people with disabilities or for instance, ALS, to be able to qualify for this act. It at this time, it is not available. And that seems unfair to me, because if they are aware of what's happening to them and they are cognitive enough to make a decision, how can we come together to allow them to make that choice as well? But again, I don't know enough of the facts to be able to really say more than that. I just think that it's important that we honor all humans the best that we can while still complying with the protocols. I think some things can be tweaked a little bit, and I believe that this is one of the things that is being considered.
When caring for a loved one on hospice, support becomes essential. Introducing the Care Plan, a path to comfort for the hospice patient, a supportive guide by experienced hospice nurses Nancy Hireman and Brenda Kazire, with over 40 years of combined hospice experience. The Care Plan is your trusted companion, a wealth of knowledge from clinicians who understand the unique challenges of hospice care. Nancy and Brenda provide practical insights in their book, along with a library of guided videos that offer caregiving tips and techniques to make caregiving easier and simpler. The Care Plan isn't just a book, it's a source of strength for those who navigate the challenges of caregiving, ensuring that every moment is embraced with compassion and care. The goal of Odonata Care is to transform the end-of-life experience through education and support. Nancy and Brenda invite you to experience all that the Care Plan has to offer. Be sure to check out their free library of care videos on thecareplan.net or on YouTube. Don't forget that the Care Plan is also available in Spanish. Purchase your copy of the Care Plan today at thecareplan.net.
Let's get into the weeds a little bit more and let's get a little bit personal, because as a nurse, a hospice nurse, we know that there's a lot of wear and tear that comes to us psychologically, emotionally, spiritually with working with the dying, regardless of whether they're utilizing medical aid in dying, a death with dignity event, regardless of whether they're utilizing that. We experience compassion fatigue, we experience moral fatigue, secondary grief. That's all very normal for what we do. So what about your compassion and moral fatigue when you're working with patients who are utilizing this particular way of dying? Does it feel different to you? And have you noticed that it's changed how you process death events?
Well, that's a really good question, and I don't know why I'm having such an emotional reaction to it. I think it has changed me significantly because as a hospice nurse and an end-of-life doula and witnessing so much death, I see death every single day. I've witnessed over 1,000 people take their last breaths, and I see death. I see suffering. I see pain. I see people trying to die and can't because their bodies aren't ready yet. And I see people at the bedside saying, what is he waiting for? Why isn't this happening sooner? Why is he suffering? That takes its toll. That causes me so much grief to witness so much pain at the end of life. So to be able to be present for someone who can legally exercise the legal right to take medications to end their suffering, that fills me up. I never say no when someone says, Gabby, can you be with this patient when they take their medications? Yes, I can, because what that means to me is I get to be witness to a human being making their own choice, having autonomy and a voice to be able to say, I want to end my suffering today. And I can simply say, I'll be right there.
Yeah.
My grief is less. My pain and sadness is less. I leave their home at the end of the day, and I think how blessed that I am and honored and privileged to be able to be present for that powerful, brave moment. I think it's harder on me when I can't relieve suffering, when I can't witness comfort and relief. So in many ways, the fatigue and the ache and the stress mentally, physically, emotionally, even spiritually of witnessing so much death is actually less for me when I can be present for someone who can make a choice to end it on their terms.
So I would ask you, Gabby, what do you do for self-care after you participate in a death like this?
Well, I have, of course, rituals that I do. You know, I'm a ritual girl.
Yes.
I light a candle for them. I say their name a lot. You might have heard me say this before in my classes, or just I write about it a lot. I ask myself 3 questions at the end of the day. And one of them is, what did I do well today? So let's say I was with a person and they exercised their right to take the medications. And I would ask myself, what did I do well today? And I would say, I was present completely. I made it about them and not me. I supported this family in a really beautiful way. And then I would say, what could I have done differently? And I would really think about that. Was there maybe a moment that I did make it about me, or maybe I could have been a little bit more sensitive or something? And I have to own that. I think we need to do that, right? So I would think about that. What could I have done differently? And then I think about, what did I learn? What did I learn today? Well, if it was about that patient and that family and that experience, I think I'm constantly being reminded of how fragile and precious life is, right? And that human beings deserve to have a softer landing. They deserve to be without pain. So what did I learn today? That I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm doing it well, and I'm honoring human beings in a way that matters to me. And so that's sort of my ritual when I do that, because I have to acknowledge my role in that, because I want you to remember that even though I support this 100%, and this is my work, I work in death. I am a death and dying every single day, right there, cheerleader, right? I've got you. But when I witness these medications being handed over to a person, and I know that when they take them, their life will end, I have a moment when I realize the reality of what that means. I have to stop and pause for a moment and just take a moment and just be with all of it. Take a deep breath and just be with that. It's a lot. We're handing somebody medications that will end their life because they've chose to, because they followed the proper protocols, because their life was ending anyway, and they're choosing to do this without pain or suffering. But I also need to acknowledge what that means. So I honor that, and I do my own moment of breath work just before they take it, so that I can not make it about me, but also truly be there for them. It's about sitting with all of it and just being and taking it in for what it is, and just being really grateful and at peace with all of it.
I think there is incredible intensity and privilege to be able to witness something like that. The times I have had the most fatigue at the end of a day were days where I sat and simply was with someone, even providing presence, to be present and witnessing someone else's suffering, and even if it was a quote-unquote good death. That's exhausting, and it takes something from us. Hospice nurses are willing to give it. They give it generously. They give of that energy and that presence, and yet we still experience those eroding energies, the grief, the compassion fatigue. And it's all a part of what we do every day. Every day. And it's not just the nurses, right? It's the aide that cradles the patient during a bath and the patient dies during the bath. You know, it's the chaplain holding someone's hand, the social worker counseling a family as a patient draws the last breath. This is what we do every day. I've never met a hospice person that said, man, this is just the stupidest choice I ever made. Why would I work in this field?
Right?
Yeah.
You know, we're sitting at the bedside in whatever position, whether you're a caregiver, a family member, a clinician. And it's almost like we want to take some of what they're carrying with them, right? And say, look, I'll hold it for you so you don't have to take that with you. And so I almost envision a water balloon, right? You've got this water balloon and you start filling it with water, and it just gets fuller and fuller and fuller. And if you don't stop, turn the water off and tie the knot, it's going to splash and spill everywhere. Well, that moment before the knot is tied is so explosive in many ways. You feel it. I feel it. I feel it when I've taken on too much. I feel it when I'm wearing too much of the emotions that are in the room. I know now when I have to step back and just breathe. We have to practice self-care. We have to take time out for ourselves. We have to know our boundaries. And if you don't, then you're going to explode everywhere. I mean, it's going to be messy. And I have never once said, why am I doing this work? I've never said I shouldn't be doing this. What I do is have conversations with myself saying, have you taken a break today? This is too much for you. Step back.
That is so healthy.
Right. And now that I do that, I know what I'm capable of, and I know what my limits are. And I am finally, it's only taken 10 years, I'm finally honoring that. And that is what I try to teach anyone else who does this work, is that you are allowed to put yourself first. You cannot, what's that saying? You can't pour from an empty cup. And so we have to do that and give yourself permission to. There is nothing wrong with saying, I can't do that today. I have to take care of me.
Absolutely. I think it's easier to take care of other people than it is to take care of ourselves.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
Absolutely. So I want to talk about your book. Dignity Day just came out. It is about working with people who have chosen to utilize their Death with Dignity Act, or EOLA, is that what you called it?
EOLOA, End of Life Option Act.
Yes, End of Life Option Act for California, medical aid in dying. So the title Dignity Day is based on your experience with the woman who had written that, how meaningful that is, and what a legacy I'm sure she did not mean to create in your life, but she did. Who is the book for?
Actually, so before she died, I told her I was going to write the book.
Oh, yeah?
And I told her that I was going to call it Dignity Day. She loved it. She absolutely loved it. This book is written for anyone who is choosing to do this. I write about what to expect, what it might feel like, what your options are, how to make it go a little smoother, perhaps conversations that you might have with other people about your decision. It's also written for the people that love the person who's choosing to do this, their caregiver, their spouse, their family members, their friends, to help them know what to expect if they're going to be at the bedside and how to support someone they love. But it's also written for the person who struggles with this choice, does not support it for whatever personal reason. And my goal is not to change their mind or get them to support it. My goal is simply to remind them that they can stay true to whatever matters most to them and still support someone else. My hope with this book is to ask that they not walk away.
So say that one more time, because I think it's worth repeating. They can provide that support without ever compromising their own beliefs.
Yes, and I think that's what people struggle with the most, because whether it's faith-based or any other reason, if they feel strongly that this is something they would never do and they cannot support, I respect that. But I think people think that if they sit at the bedside of someone who chooses to do this, then that compromises their beliefs, that they no longer hold a valid space within. And I want them to know that that is absolutely untrue. You can still feel strongly about something and support someone who feels differently. That's okay. It simply says that you're going to let that person know that they are not alone. In no way ever will it say that this goes against what you believe in. I don't want people to feel like they have to change what matters most to them. Again, and I'll repeat myself, I simply ask that they don't walk away. I think they'll regret it. One of the things I say in my book is, ask yourself this question. If you walk out that door because you can't support that your friend or family member is choosing to do this, and they die without you at that bedside, will you regret this? Will you wish one day down the road that you hadn't walked away, that you sat at the bedside, that you hold their hand? If your answer is yes, don't walk away. Can I read you a poem that I wrote about that?
Please, please.
The poem is called We Will Not Walk Away. When someone has received a terminal diagnosis and they've been told that they have less time, what this translates most to them is that they have been moved to the front of the line, a line no one wants to stand in, a line that can often bring fear, a line that changes everything for them and lets them know that death is near. So many things are taken from them, most importantly, their autonomy and choice, leaving them dependent on everyone and everything, no longer having a voice. So if given an opportunity to say goodbye to pain, to end their suffering and to feel free again, they need to know we support them, that we will not walk away. They need to know that whatever they choose, we are here to stay. That's what this book is for.
That's beautiful. Gabby, you said yourself you're a ritual girl. We know the power of rituals. We learned that during the pandemic because so many of our community and gathering rituals were not allowable or safe for us. And you really support and endorse the use of rituals. What's a ritual that you would use with a family at end of life if the patient has utilized this particular way of ending their own lives?
Most of the time, because the person who is taking the medications is so cognitive and awake, this is their opportunity to say goodbye. What I did recently was I handed each one of them a candle. The people, there was about 5 or 6 people there witnessing her taking these medications. And I lit each one of their candle, and then I handed her a candle and lit hers. And I offered them a chance to say something beautiful about this person, something that they love or respect about them, or something that they did that they will carry with them for the rest of their life. For instance, thank you for trusting me all this time, or thank you for the love that you've given me, or thank you for being the most wonderful mother. I am a better mother because of you, or something along those lines. So each person took their candle and they said what they wanted, and they handed that over to the woman who was taking her medications. And then what I asked them to do was, after they were done saying what they did, was to put the candle kind of down next to her on the bed, blow it out, and put it next to her and watch the swirl, and let her see the swirl of the energy of the candle flames going out, of these messages that are circling and sort of wrapping around her. And each one took a turn saying something lovely about her, her effect on them, the gifts that she brought into their life, and said goodbye. And then it was her turn. And she said to them how much she loved them, how much they mattered to her, how much she appreciated all of them supporting her. And then she blew out her candle, and we all sat for a moment, and the swirl of the candle took longer. And it was so beautiful. It was as though it was in really slow motion for us all to just truly savor that. And then she put it down, and the candles were all along her bed on this little tray out along her bed. And we all sat there, and there was quiet for a moment. And then we knew it was time.
Wow.
It was so beautiful and peaceful. I make them up often. It just depends on who is there and what I think they need. But usually my rituals, especially when it is evolved around medical aid and dying and taking these medications, it's about taking those last moments to offer gratitude to the person who is dying, and to send them off with peace and love, and to let them know that their life mattered.
Beautiful. Gabby, will you read something from the book for us?
Sure. There's a lot of things to read. Each page, it's got little nuggets. There's so many things. But I think I'll read one part. It's titled My Message. The first one is, for the person trying to process the decision to take the end-of-life medications. Remember that this is about you and how you are feeling, about everything that is happening to you right now. In life, we meet people who do not agree with or support the things we do or say. In our lifetime, we have made decisions that benefits others because that is easier. We have a habit of putting our own feelings aside so as not to upset or offend others or let someone else down. But this decision is not about anyone else. This decision is yours to make. And the other part of that is for the person trying to process the decision someone you love is making. I understand that this decision is hard to take. There are so many different feelings and reactions that I witness people trying to work through when someone they love decides to do this. Your struggle is real. Your feelings are valid. I hope that after reading my words, you might understand where they are coming from and that it allows you to lean in instead of step back. The whole book is filled with things like the questions I'm asked often, encouraging them to ask questions, letting them know what to expect, understanding that this is a decision that is difficult to make, knowing that not everyone supports it, and how you can support someone that does this. I talk about the fact that we treat our animals better than we treat our humans. You know, in the back of the book, I actually write about that because the truth is we would never allow our animals to suffer.
Yeah.
We are selfish in nature because we want the people we love to stay with us for as long as possible. And when they choose to take these medications to end their life, most people will see it as this person choosing to leave sooner. Why can't you stay longer? Why are you wanting to rush this? What we forget is that the motivation behind the decision is the fact that this person is dying anyway. We just want to ensure that they do it with less suffering. They don't want to die. They don't want to leave sooner. They're not abandoning you. They're saying, I can no longer deal with the pain, physically, emotionally, spiritually, or mentally. And our role as someone who loves them is simply to say, I don't want that for you either. This is hard for me, but I've got you.
I love it. Gabby, where can listeners go to work with you, find your classes, participate in your classes, and to order a copy of your books?
Everything is actually on my website. You can find my classes, blogs. I write a lot about death and dying, a lot about grief. I have my classes. I have all of my podcasts. I do have the links to my books, and all of that is at the website, which is thehospiceheart.net. The books, I've written 6 so far, with 2 more coming out soon that are a part of this new 4-part series. Those can be found on Amazon, but all the links are on my website. And the Facebook page link is there as well, which is a beautiful community where I share a lot about everything that I feel passionately towards death, dying, life, living, and grief.
We'll be sure to put everything in the show notes so people can connect with all the work that you're doing. I will tell you that the Facebook group is amazing, amazing. And maybe that's not your current situation. There's so much to be learned from what you're writing and how people are writing into you and responding to you with questions and comments, telling their own stories. Just amazing stuff. Gabby, thanks for being back on the Hospice Heart of Hospice Heart. I can't even say it. Our new podcast, but it's so great to have you back with us. Thanks for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me. I love you so much.
Love you right back. You can find Gabby and her books at thehospiceheart.net. Same thing on Facebook. Her Facebook group really is very active and very amazing. You're going to want to connect in with that and see what she's doing there. Be sure to catch the next episode of the Heart of Hospice podcast. You can find more episodes on theheartofhospice.com, and don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. You can connect with the Heart of Hospice on Facebook and Instagram and send your questions or comments by email to helen@theheartofhospice.com. And remember, no matter who you are or where you are in your hospice journey, you are the heart of hospice.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.